Something strange is happening in 2025. You may not feel it on your street, you may not see it on your morning news, but if you look at the skies, at the once crowded terminals, the roaring jet engines, the runways of global travel, you'll begin to notice something missing. Silence. Not the comforting silence of rest, but the eerie quiet of something that used to be loud, something that used to be unstoppable. Because this year, something is vanishing. And it's not just a statistic. It's an era. The great magnet that once pulled millions to American soil has started to lose its power, and the consequences are unfolding in real time. So if you think this is just about plane tickets, think again. This is bigger, this is personal, and it's just getting started. So hit subscribe now and stay with us, because what we're about to reveal might change the way you think about travel, diplomacy, and the story the world is telling itself about the United States. For decades, America wasn't just a place. It was the dream. It was the shining skyline in 1,000 movies, the road trip fantasy, the city lights of New York, the sunsets of California. People saved for years just to touch it. Honeymoons, graduations, retirements, even the word America used to taste like freedom. But in 2025, that dream is faltering. The data is undeniable. The images are jarring. And the reasons? They aren't on billboards. They're buried deep in emotion, in fear, in frustration, in doubt, and perhaps even in shame. Empty flights, silent customs halls, ghost-like terminals. This isn't just seasonal variation. This is a pattern, a fracture in perception. In March alone, tourism from Canada and Mexico dropped by double digits. Western Europe, down. South Asia, down. South America, dropping fast. Here in New York, one of the most iconic tourist capitals on Earth, the red carpet once rolled out to the world is gathering dust. Now, some say it's the economy. Others blame the headlines. But listen closely, and you'll hear something else. A shift. A murmur of concern that's becoming louder in places where America once stood untouchable. In London, in Berlin, in Tokyo, in Paris, in college campuses and business boards and family dinner tables. Conversations are changing, and so are decisions. Travelers are hesitating. Not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. Airline routes are being canceled. Entire sectors of travel infrastructure are being rerouted, and international students, they're skipping the U.S. altogether, not because of money, not because of logistics, but because something deeper has broken. So what exactly happened? When did the world go from dreaming of America to dodging it? There is no one single moment, no explosion, no boycott. This unraveling came like fog, slow, unstoppable, and rooted in something no PR campaign can fix: trust. Across Europe and Asia, travelers are reporting a rise in tension at U.S. borders, long waits, harsh questioning, even racial profiling. Professionals, students, families, people with perfectly valid visas, all facing detentions, interrogations, and unexplained rejections. These are not isolated rumors. They are documented cases, amplified through every social feed, broadcast, and airport story. And when enough stories match, people start listening. In Germany, the government officially updated its travel guidance after several of its citizens, including students, were detained at American airports. A chilling line from the German Foreign Ministry: a valid visa does not guarantee entry. In Japan, the national broadcaster NHK has aired multiple stories of engineers and tourists being detained by U.S. Customs. Some held for hours, no explanations, no apologies. Just a growing unease that this is no longer the country they thought they were visiting. And in Australia, where American culture is still widely embraced, the government's travel agency issued multiple warnings about inconsistent and invasive border procedures. Phone checks, luggage searches, delays without explanation. The result? A stunning 16% drop in bookings to the U.S., while flights to Japan and New Zealand are surging. If you think this is just media exaggeration, think again. One Australian traveler shared this: I was questioned by an officer. Then, my mother and I were taken to a room. She was released. I was not. 4 hours later, I was moved to a federal detention center. That's not a vacation memory. That's trauma. And it's happening more often than you think. On social media, Australians are sharing horror stories of interrogation, searches, humiliation, and one common conclusion: it's not worth it anymore. This isn't just about tourism. This is about something far more fragile: reputation. And in 2025, America's global image is being quietly rewritten, not by wars, not by sanctions, but by thousands of individual moments of discomfort, anxiety, and rejection. Once a symbol of openness, the United States is now often seen as a fortress, hard to enter, easy to fear, difficult to trust, and every border incident, every denied visa, every confiscated phone echoes like a warning across the globe, especially in places that once felt allied, connected, inspired. So ask yourself, what does it take to lose that trust? Not one scandal, not one crisis, just 1,000 small cuts. And now, even Canada, America's closest neighbor, is turning away. Forbes reported that in April alone, flights from Canada to the U.S. dropped by nearly 20%. Land crossings down over 35%. Canadian media is filled with posts urging travelers to skip the U.S. entirely. Forums overflowing with suggestions. Try Portugal. Go to Mexico. Invest in other places. Some even say, don't bring your dollars to a country that treats you like a suspect. And people are listening. Subscribe now if you haven't yet, because we're just getting into the real shift that's happening. What airlines are doing now is nothing short of strategic retreat. Air Canada is reducing U.S. routes while expanding flights to Europe and Latin America. In Australia, agents are rerouting would-be Florida tourists to Bali. In France, Le Monde ran a front-page feature questioning if America has lost its mystique. Their conclusion? Yes. Double-digit declines in U.S. bookings. A pivot to Spain, Greece, Quebec. France no longer sees America as an automatic ally. In fact, over 70% of French citizens now express unfavorable views of American leadership. The land of the free is no longer seen as a guarantee of freedom. Business leaders are worried. College administrators are scrambling. Tourism departments are watching entire years of planning fall apart. But the tourists aren't just not coming, they're actively going elsewhere, choosing places that feel safer, simpler, and frankly, more welcoming. And this trend isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. In Brazil, influencers are urging their followers to avoid U.S. travel. In India, popular YouTubers openly warn their audiences about humiliating entry procedures. In South Korea, the largest K-pop stars cancel tours citing logistical complications. But everyone knows what that really means. Even celebrities are changing their habits. Fewer stars are seen in LA shops. Major festivals report fewer international attendees. Sports tourism is down. Luxury shopping is declining. And beneath it all, there's a growing feeling that something is off, that America is no longer the future. It's becoming a warning. So, what's driving all this? Tariffs, diplomatic standoffs, insurance premiums, but also emotion, culture, perception. The American dream, it turns out, doesn't survive on infrastructure. It survives on how it makes people feel. And right now, that feeling isn't joy, it's hesitation. And when enough people hesitate, the dream dies a little more every day. In a world connected by flights, stories, and screens, tourism isn't just an industry. It's storytelling. It's how a nation markets its values. It's how strangers become guests, and guests become fans. But if the story begins with fear and ends with detention, that's not a vacation. That's a warning sign. And across the world, people are heeding that warning. Quietly, steadily, permanently. So what does this mean for 2025? It means America must decide what it wants to be. A fortress or a host, a symbol of suspicion or of welcome. because the numbers don't lie, but neither do the feelings. And if the U.S. continues on this path, the loss won't just be tourist dollars. It will be influence, admiration, trust, and those are things no advertisement can buy back. And if you've made it this far, ask yourself this. Do you still see the United States the way you did 5 years ago? Or 10? Or 20? Because for millions around the globe, that answer is already clear. And if the answer is no, the consequences won't wait. Like this report, share it, like it, and subscribe right now. Because next, we'll explore what might come next, and whether the quiet decline of American tourism is just the beginning of something much larger. But what if this isn't just a decline in tourism? What if we're witnessing something far more profound? Something that doesn't fit neatly into charts and quarterly updates? What if 2025 is not just the year American travel numbers fell, but the year the world's emotional contract with the United States began to unravel? Because what's happening now doesn't feel like a boycott. It feels like a slow, collective disengagement, a kind of global quiet quitting, not with protests or picket signs, but with something far more powerful in the long run: indifference. People are not angry. They're just turning away, quietly, systematically, choosing other skylines, other stories, other futures, and if you look closely, you'll see it everywhere. You'll see it in the shuttered tour offices, once filled with brochures of Grand Canyon hikes and Disney vacations, now replaced with posters of Lisbon, Seoul, Buenos Aires. You'll see it in the social media accounts of influencers who used to take selfies in Times Square or the Hollywood Hills, but are now broadcasting from the markets of Marrakech or the beaches of Bali. You'll see it in the travel forums once obsessed with New York itineraries, now filled with threads titled "Safer Alternatives to the U.S., What to Know Before You Risk American Customs," or simply, "Is it worth it anymore?" But here's the bigger question. What exactly pushed the world to this tipping point? Because people didn't just wake up one morning and decide to blacklist the United States. It built slowly, quietly, dangerously, a snowball gathering speed. Some point to the rising unpredictability at U.S. borders, the way agents now ask for social media passwords, check political affiliations, even demand access to encrypted apps. Others cite the strange wave of stories emerging from tourists detained for harmless comments made years ago. Imagine flying 12 hours, landing with excitement, and then being interrogated because you once tweeted a joke about American politics. That's not border security. That's fear management. And let's talk about families. Parents who once dreamed of showing their children the Smithsonian or Yosemite are now asking, what if we get separated at customs? What if a misunderstanding ruins everything? What if we are treated like threats simply because we look different, speak another language, or carry a passport from the wrong continent? These questions aren't paranoid. They're based on lived experience, on real events that once upon a time would have sparked outrage but now barely make the news. And when fear becomes normalized, tourism dies long before the first flight gets canceled. Meanwhile, universities across the U.S. are reporting alarming drops in international enrollment. These are not small numbers. These are future scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, choosing other nations for their education and taking their talents with them. And when those students choose Canada or the UK or Singapore instead of Boston or Los Angeles, it's not just tuition that's lost. It's global influence, it's generational relationships, and once those bonds break, rebuilding them is not just difficult, it's nearly impossible. Ask yourself, what happens when a nation that once symbolized the future begins to feel like a cautionary tale? When the country that was once the answer to the world's ambitions starts becoming the question itself? Why go? Is it worth the risk? Do they even want us there? Because the truth is, it's not just about tourism policy. It's about the tone, the treatment, the temperature of welcome, or the chill of suspicion. And in 2025, that chill is spreading. In some regions, travel insurance for trips to the U.S. has increased significantly. Not because of natural disasters, not because of health risks, but because of the unpredictability of immigration behavior. That's right. Insurance companies now factor in the likelihood of being detained, denied entry, or facing legal ambiguity. When insurers start to calculate humiliation into their risk models, you know something has gone terribly wrong. But the most haunting shift isn't economic. It's psychological. It's the quiet conversations over dinner tables around the world. Parents saying, maybe let's wait until things calm down. Young couples whispering, let's honeymoon somewhere safer. Students deciding, I'll get just as good an education in Europe and feel more human doing it. These aren't boycotts. These are exits, gentle, private, irreversible. And what if this growing absence is just the beginning of something else? What if the decline in tourism is not the end, but the first domino in a chain reaction that hasn't fully revealed itself yet? After all, tourism fuels real estate, retail, entertainment, hospitality, and when foot traffic disappears, cities start to feel hollow. That energy of languages mixing, cultures colliding, dreams arriving, has always been a hidden currency of America's success. What happens when that current shuts off? And what about the long-term optics? Because international travel isn't just economics. It's symbolism. It's storytelling. Every family that visits tells a story when they return. It was amazing. It was warm. It was home. But now the stories have changed. We were treated like criminals. We'll never go back. Something is wrong over there. These stories travel faster than airplanes. They are told at dinner tables, in classrooms, on social platforms, in group chats, and no PR firm on earth can outpace a story that's been lived and shared by millions. So if you're still watching this and thinking this is just a temporary dip, ask yourself, what's being done to fix it? Where's the empathy? Where's the apology? Where's the global listening campaign? Because you can't fix a hospitality crisis with slogans. You fix it by making people feel welcome again. And in 2025, welcome is in short supply. Suspicion is in surplus. And silence, it's the loudest sound of all. If this resonates with you, hit like and drop a comment. Tell us, would you still choose the US for your next trip, or has something shifted in your perception too? Because every view, every comment, every subscription helps us understand the pulse of this moment. And trust me, this pulse is telling a story that no one in Washington wants to hear. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because the next chapter of this story is even more revealing. In the next segment, we're diving deeper into how global rivals are quietly stepping in to fill the vacuum America is leaving behind. You won't want to miss it. The game is shifting, and someone else is setting the rules. So stay tuned, because this isn't just about flights anymore. This is about influence, about identity, about what kind of future the world is choosing. And in 2025, more and more, that future is being drawn somewhere else. So, what happens when the world starts walking away from what used to be the center? When the axis around which global tourism, admiration, and even trust revolved begins to crack? It doesn't leave a void for long. Because while the United States struggles with perception, other nations are moving swiftly, confidently, almost silently, taking its place, one flight, one photo, one decision at a time. And this is not just a shift, it's a rebalancing of global narrative, a quiet rewriting of who leads, who hosts, who inspires. You can already see it in the strategies of emerging tourism powers, who aren't just watching America falter, they're capitalizing on it. China has invested billions in cultural diplomacy, opening visa-free travel for dozens of countries, building futuristic airports that feel more like museums, launching campaigns that depict not just temples and skyscrapers, but stability. That word, that feeling, stability, is becoming a global currency. And America, once synonymous with it, no longer holds the monopoly in the Middle East. Countries like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are transforming themselves into hyper-modern global destinations. Dubai is no longer just a stopover. it's a centerpiece. Riyadh is constructing megaprojects designed to draw in the youth of the world. While Western narratives focus on oil and politics, a different strategy is unfolding. Tourism as soft power. Welcoming travelers not with suspicion, but with efficiency, spectacle, convenience. Singapore, South Korea, and even Vietnam have leaned into this moment. They see what's happening. They sense the gap forming. And they're racing not to criticize the United States, but to replace it in the hearts and minds of the next generation of travelers. And let's not ignore the quiet but undeniable rise of Latin America. From Colombia's rebirth as a cultural capital to Argentina's reinvention through festivals and wine tourism, to Mexico's growing dominance in both luxury and budget-friendly travel, the Southern Hemisphere is becoming the new horizon for millions. All of this is unfolding as Europe cements its status as the default alternative to American tourism. The emotional familiarity of France, the warmth of Portugal, the history of Greece, all now wrapped in a far less controversial package. Travelers are increasingly saying, if I can get beauty, culture, food, safety, and respect, why risk crossing the Atlantic? This is not just a redirection of airplanes. This is a redirection of dreams, a reallocation of desire. And every canceled trip to the United States is an open door somewhere else. But here's the deeper threat. This isn't just about where people go, it's about what they believe. Because tourism isn't just an economic engine. It's how values are exported. It's how soft power is transmitted. It's how generations are influenced. And when the classroom trip to Washington becomes a visit to Brussels, when the tech summit once held in San Francisco now takes place in Singapore, when the honeymoon that used to mean Manhattan now means Marrakech, something bigger is changing, something foundational. So what if this slow collapse of American tourism is only the surface crack? What if beneath it lies a deeper erosion of cultural leadership, of emotional connection, of diplomatic gravity? Because when trust is lost in small places, it doesn't stay small. It spreads, and the absence of welcome becomes the presence of doubt. And doubt, once it takes root in the minds of millions, doesn't need a flag or a protest to grow. It just needs time. And that's exactly what's happening now. Time is working against the United States, and for everyone else. While America debates walls, others are building bridges. While it argues over immigration, others are refining how to greet you at the airport. While it questions everyone's motive for entering, others are asking, how can we make you feel at home? And here's where it gets even more serious. What starts in tourism doesn't end there. The decline in visitors leads to a decline in cultural familiarity. Fewer foreigners experiencing American daily life means fewer people understanding it. Misunderstanding breeds faster. Distance grows. And when that cultural familiarity shrinks, so does the global benefit of the doubt. The next time there's a crisis, a policy, a vote, the world won't ask what America thinks. It will ask why America still thinks it should lead. And what if, by that point, the answer is no longer clear? All across Asia, Europe, and South America, governments are adjusting their travel advisories, not with dramatic headlines, but with subtle warnings. Not don't go, but think twice. Not danger, but uncertainty. These words matter, because modern travelers don't just look at prices and photos. They read mood. They read emotion. They follow reviews, stories, lived experience. And in 2025, the lived experience of visiting the U.S. is no longer consistently magical. It's filled with too many ifs, too many maybes, too many what-ifs at the border, too many moments of second-guessing your decision to come. And what's the plan? Where's the response? Where are the listening tours, the softening of borders, the rebuilding of trust? Instead, we see silence, or worse, defensiveness. The attitude of, you're lucky to come here, is beginning to backfire, because the truth is, the world now has options, and once people realize that a dream can be replaced, they stop waiting for it to improve. They move on. So ask yourself, how many more missed chances can one country afford? How many more families will skip the White House tour for a gondola in Venice? How many more entrepreneurs will pitch their startups in Toronto or Seoul instead of Austin or Silicon Valley? How many more international students will choose a campus where they don't have to fear detention over paperwork? The numbers may be tracked in graphs, but the real loss, that's emotional, invisible, lasting. If you're still with us now, tell us in the comments, what do you think this signals? Is it too late? Or can the United States still recover its standing, its image, its invitation to the world? Because if this isn't fixed soon, it won't just be a dip. It'll be a detour, a global one where the world stops revolving around the stars and stripes and starts following a new constellation altogether. And if you found this powerful, thought-provoking, or simply something others need to hear, share it, like it, subscribe, because the world is changing fast, and the most dangerous thing we can do is pretend that nothing is happening. This is no longer about flights, this is about legacy, and whether a country built on welcoming the world can still remember how to do exactly that. This was the story of America's tourism unraveling, a warning, a signal, and perhaps a last call.